Hello and welcome to post-match reaction to the Rebels versus the Hurricanes. It finished 1950, amazingly enough, but it didn't look like that early on. I'm Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul, a podcast, YouTube channel, Twitter account, and website bringing you the best in rugby predictions and opinion. And joining me this evening is the man behind New Zealand rugby quizzes, perhaps the most knowledgeable man, or at least your pub quiz man that you want. Josh, how you doing, sir?
I'm pretty good, Paul. How are you, mate?
Not bad at all, not bad. So, just so everyone know, people who don't know you, you're down in Wellington. So this is your home team that you're watching.
Indeed, it is, Paul. Yeah. So I am rather inactive with my quizzes at the moment. I think I've done so many of them that it's more of more an update mode as needs be right now. But check them out. Always link to them via Twitter if anyone's interested.
Oh, they're great fun to try and do. So do look those up. I'll have the link to his Twitter account in the notes down below. So cool. Debrasini early doors had a horrible clearance kick, which put his team under pressure, but they managed to hold out pretty nicely. There at that point, and I was a bit surprised to see actually that Canes had that territory, that possession. But they decided to actually kick sticks early on.
Yeah, that was rather unusual. It's certainly not something they would normally do. And I was trying to sort of work out the reason why they would do that, because it's so uncharacteristic. But I think what they were sort of thinking, was to look to that the Rebels would be the sort of team, particularly with a big pack, that might take a while to break down. So my thoughts were that they looked to just sort of get what points they could on the board early, and then look to open up a bit later. But you're definitely right. It took certainly the first 20 minutes. They had a very hard time breaking down that Rebels defence, and I think that probably justifies them having a crack at the poles early. But as you suggest, it's rather uncharacteristic.
Yeah, it's about surprise. It is uncharacteristic, but you say they weren't really breaking them down, and they were playing some fast and loose stuff at that point, which gave the Rebels territory. We had, I can remember at one stage there was a kick that came down, and Geordie ran it back, then tries to throw it inside. It gets thrown inside by somebody else, and because there's no ruck has been created, there's no offside line, and you just got players everywhere, and they were just trying to play too loose in a too messy kind of environment, I think.
Yeah, I'd have to agree with that. Once they got a bit more structure into the game in the second half, they were fine, but I was a bit surprised in that first 20 with the weight of possession they had, that they didn't, in particularly territory as well, that they didn't score more points than they did. Partly the Rebels' defence, but as you say, loose play and probably more errors than they'd like. I think too the Canes, discipline was an issue, particularly in that first half, and the Rebels capitalised on that quite well.
Yeah, and the discipline was. One of the things we saw during the previous game, which was Chiefs versus the Highlanders, was nearly all the penalties were on the defending side. In this game, both the defending and the attacking side were giving up penalties, and hence the penalty count was much higher. We had 12 to the Rebels and 10 to the Hurricanes, and the previous game we had 6 each. So yeah, there was lot more whistle in this game, and during that the first sort of 20 minutes, the Rebels took advantage. Because of that loose play, they got territory, and then quickly they were putting up, they were getting penalties. So they racked up 9 penalties in that early stage to take the lead. But we probably actually should talk about the early try as well. Going wide to Ben Lamb, a sign of things to come.
Yes, it was certainly the Ben Lamb show today, wasn't it? He's a player that's sort of taken longer to come through than I would have expected. Of course, he was in the New Zealand Sevens set up for some time, but I often felt that he would be more suited to 15s than sevens, just certainly given the the size and speed that he has.
We saw tonight he also has a very good kick on him as well.
He does, but last year, for example, he spent most of the Hurricanes season playing club rugby here in Wellington for Tawa. Of course, breaking into the Hurricanes backline is easier said than done, but he was he was out of the 23 on a regular basis, and just seems obviously having a good injury-free run seems to have been what's done it. But you've got a guy with that size, metre 93 thereabouts, 100 and close to 110 kgs, and that speed. You're always going to be a handful, and I'm just a little bit surprised it's taken him until this year to break through.
Yeah, well, he was at the Blues beforehand. I remember watching him up here, and actually played less games than I thought, but I think he was used in the wrong way up here by the Blues. We saw him more as a battering ram, not really as a speedster, and which he's been given the opportunity to do down at the Canes. The other side of it is that I think with Julian Severe's kind of has All Black dreams still. We'll discuss probably that a bit later, but we've just seen him move over to the right wing, so he doesn't compete with Rico Iwani, and that has also freed up the left wing for Ben Lam as well. So that's possibly also part of it as well.
That is true. Although I've seen, particularly at club level, I've seen Lam play in the midfield as well. He's quite a versatile sort of player. I mean, he can maybe at that level it might be a bit of a pinch, but Lam can actually, I've seen play anywhere from 11 to 15. He's that good.
Yeah, and he proved it tonight. The other player that was played very well during that first 20 minutes was was Maffey, who
yes.
Well, the commentators seem to think he ran over 100 meters. My stats have him down at 80, 84ish, but still for a number 8, that's an impressive number of yardage.
Indeed, and that's always been his style. I remember watching him quite a bit, certainly during my time in Japan. Of course, Muffy, plays for the national side over there. Interesting story. He went over to Japan got a university scholarship to, play a bit of rugby and study at one of the universities over there, and obviously qualified for Japan through residency, and every post's been a winner for him since then. But that's always been his game. He'll just run hard, and that's what he'll do, and he's been pretty effective with that. And you can certainly see the Rebels lost a bit when he went off at half time.
Well, to me, I thought they actually lost a bit earlier than that. I think he looked gassed probably around about the 20 minute, half an hour mark, and I'm not sure we saw much out of him for the latter part of the first half even. And whilst he is very destructive and very good during that first 20 minutes, half an hour, that's not really what you kind of want from a player. You need a player that can play the full 80 minutes.
Well, that's it. I mean, the Rebels came with a pretty heavy loose forward trio, to be honest. I mean, you had Cottrell, who's normally at the line side, playing on the open, and had Tamani and Muffy there as well. So that's very much a heavyweight sort of back five of that forward pack, and I think that's one thing that started to show as well. I mean, the Canes have always picked a very mobile loose forward trio, and
they have. But if you're going to have that heavy back row to get you over the game line, then you need the other guys to step up and do some running as well. Tamani only 3 carries during the game. Cottrell only 3 carries. Maffey 14 carries. He just didn't get any support, which I think has been the problem here. That the Rebels are a good group of players, but they rely a lot on Maffey to get them over the game line and Genia to provide the magic.
Yeah, exactly. And I think whilst Genia was good, I guess defensively the Hurricanes knew who was going to be the guy running the play, and and reacted accordingly. So Genia was a factor, but I think they largely shut him down. Yeah,
this is kind of telling. So you got Maffey top meters made, and he went top, and he basically stopped playing after half an hour with 85 meters. Genia comes next with 49 meters, Debrasini with 33 meters, and then Maddox with 42. You're like, well, really? Because when you've got your scrum half is your second most meters made, and your fly half is your third most meters made. Sorry, fourth most meters made. What are the rest of your backs doing? Corabetti got through that game with 1 pass, no runs. He only touched the ball once during the game, which is appalling. That play by the Rebels. They really need to get the ball into his hands more. Look at someone his opposite number, Severe. The player was playing opposite him. Severe 17 runs, Ben Lam 9 runs. The fact that Corabetti never touched the ball, or touched the ball once, sorry, it's criminal by the by the Rebels. Tom English, again, another player who who's got pace, but he got 3 passes, 2 runs for 5 meters. He just never got the ball out wide. It's played very narrow, and once you lost Maffey, they basically lost all their go forward.
They didn't. I mean, the Rebels struggled to hold on to the ball for phases, which is why they didn't really get the opportunity to go wide. I mean, I think you recall the commentators in the second half when Rebels got up above 7 phases, and they were like, "Oh, that's the first time in the game they've done it." You know, it tended to be that they'd go sort of 4 or 5 phases, and you know, the attack could break down, or you know, something would happen. So. You know, that's why, but you know, I guess you've got a guy like Corey Betty who is, you know, he's a very good attacker. That, you know, if you can't get the ball into one of your premier attackers' hands, then you know there's something definitely wrong there. But partly, I mean, I think the line speed of the Hurricanes is pretty good as well. You know, they weren't allowing the ball to go wide, which is part of it. But
the line speed and also tackling. They finished the game on 87% tackling. They were making their tackles, and the Rebels weren't as well, which also is a big factor. So the Rebels actually managed to pull out to a 19-8 lead with Philip bashing over and off Debrasini's boot, and that got us to the half-hour mark, which is what we're kind of talking about is when they kind of ran out of steam, and suddenly we saw the Canes again get an easy 3 in front of the posts. And they took it, which again was another surprise. They were still kicking.
But I mean, taking back to that try that Philip got, what was your you know, what was your view on that try? Do you think that should have been awarded, or?
So once the on-field decision is that it's our on-field decision is a try, please prove otherwise. It has to be a clear drop, knock on. Yes, he lost control and dropped the ball. Did he go forwards or backwards? From the camera angles I saw, you couldn't clearly say either way. And if he'd said, I think it's not a try, can you let me know any reason can I give the try? The answer would have been no. So it comes down to what the referee is asking. And he asked, I think it's not on-field decision to try. You've got to prove to me otherwise. There wasn't proof there to say otherwise, but there wasn't proof to say it was a try either. If you get where I'm coming from.
Yeah, no, that I mean, I suppose it's a good interpretation of how it works. So I think as a Hurricanes fan, I was sort of throwing my toys a little bit at that point. But then when I actually looked at the replay, I felt that he had possibly lost that backwards. But in any case, the reason that the ball came out was because of Riccatelli's tackle. So you know, Riccatelli's arm basically knocked it out. So you know, it may be presented as a contentious try, but I think you know, it's probably fair enough at the end of the day.
I think it was fair enough, and I think, yeah, as you say, there was enough doubt in the minds to say that to say it could be allowed. I may lose my stats during this because my batteries on my other laptop are dropping low, but doesn't really matter. So the one big stat I do want to cover off before I lose the batteries on this is the tackling with the Rebels. At the end of the first half, they had a 17% tackle rate. By the end of the game, that dropped to 65%. Missing 27 tackles in a game is appalling, and they only made 50. If you're going to have that sort of tackle rate against a decent attacking side, not necessarily not in the Hurricanes, a much lower side, you're still going to be in a lot of trouble, and they're going to have to tighten that up.
Oh yeah, there's no question. I mean, the Hurricanes have got some outstanding attackers, and you're going to struggle to make 90% of your tackles, but you probably want it to be at least, and if you want to compete, 85% or thereabouts. The Hurricanes are going to score points in you, but you've got to tackle a lot better than that. 65%. You're not going to win a lot of games, with that sort of tackle rate.
No, exactly. So the Canes took the easy 3, which we talked about. Then Debrasini lets a crossfield kick from the Canes 22 bounce, and Ben Lamb just shows his magic. Great pace to put it in.
And that was that was pace. I mean, that was lucky, wasn't it? But at the same time, as a defender, I think Debrasini probably could have said, "Well, look, actually, do I take the gamble that it's going to bounce on the line, or you know, if I do take it, I'm going to be bundled out. It was, it was a hard call to make, I guess, as a from a defensive position as to what to do. But you know, I guess the luck didn't go his way, and you know,
no, I guess you're right. If you're in your own 20, if you're in your own 22, it's one of those ones you claim and you carry out. If it's in the middle of the park, you think it's going to, you think law of averages says you're going to be okay. Even if it does do a wicked bounce like that, you expect someone to there to be cover. But yeah, unfortunately, there wasn't for him. And then the Bowden Barrett just before half time just walks in by he just looks one way. All the defenders follow where he's, or Philip, the only defender in front of him, follows where he's looking, and he just strolls over. But I guess the point about that one was actually the two big scrums. To be honest, at that point was I thought the Hurricanes clearly stepped it up because we saw their scrum struggle at other points during the game, but they clearly had a message. This is where we want to go in at half time up. Yeah, I mean it looked easy, didn't it? But it was a forward one actual try that we'll look at the backs and go, oh, weren't the Blacks wonderful? And two scrums on the trot. So the first off, they won one against the head, or they pushed the scrum back far enough that Maffey had to pick up and carry over his own line, which gave them their own scrum. Yeah, no, they stepped up, and I mean that. Okay, Joshua, I think we've lost you, unfortunately. I've not got any sound from you now. Okay, I've lost Joshua. If he comes back, it'll be obviously we'll talk more with him. But his sound's gone, and he might need to drop off and come back on. So that meant at half time the that's right. Those are the moments as a forward, you know, particularly as an ex type forward. Those are the moments I loved. You know. Okay, can you hear me, mate? I can just about hear you now. Yep. So yeah, you say as a forward, those are the times you love where you can get the opportunity to put one over on the opposition, and yeah, they did it great there. The other one that confused me actually was them saying that Maffey had a head injury assessment during half time or at the end of half time. I'm like, head injury assessment is supposed to take 10 minutes. Is there any better, mate? Yeah, I think okay, try one more time. All right, I'll. So one of the things that did confuse me was Maffey at half time. They said he was having a head injury assessment after the second. I'll come back. Cool. Into the second half, but you've got that's supposed to be 10 minutes for the for the head injury assessment, and then how come he can come back after a 15-minute break? Would be how I think it. That confused me. How you can have a head injury assessment at the end of half time. Yeah, yeah, that was an interesting one. I think given. So that was there. Yeah, well, so that happened. And then so I'm surprised that Maffey had that. And then basically the Canes took over in that second half, didn't they? They didn't allow the Rebels to score any points, which was a massive one. The other point of this was that the Canes were still kicking sticks after half time, which I guess opened it up to be more than a single score gap. I thought they would have gone to the corner at that point once they had the lead, but they still kept on pushing those sticks, which was a bit of a surprise. We then had a fantastic tap and go from TJ Piranara to set up the next try. The scrum penalty, he went, and then Evans, he went about halfway. He ran all the way into the 22. Genia thought about tackling him short, but the ref said leave him alone because obviously Genia wasn't back. We already had a previous situation like that. And then after the breakdown, spin out wide to the right. Evans at at 8 managed to run around a prop and score the try. So it was that was an impressive bit of running by Evans. Evans has been someone that we've seen be impressed this season in some games and then fade out in other games, and we need to see a bit more consistency from him. But otherwise, say he's been a good player for the Hurricanes this season. Moving down through the other tries, then we saw actually the scoreboard pressure then started to tell on the Rebels, because we saw up until this point the Rebels have been kicking their penalties, but they got a penalty on around about that 50-odd minute mark, or 54 minutes, and they said they went for the corner. And then part of that, the Maul, they dropped the ball. And I wrote in my notes at that point, drop the ball and drop the game. That was their opportunity to get back into it in 50 minutes. And when they didn't, 54 minutes, and when they didn't, you thought, well, okay, they didn't score here. That was it. It was all over. And so it proved to be. And they were 14 points behind at that stage. A try at that point, or 7 points at that point, would have got them back within a score. And then it could have been game on. But it wasn't to be. On the hour mark, we saw also running down the left wing, and Lamapi scoring on the right wing, which is a great example of the two centres playing out wide and players just being able to play in different positions and not being sort of too forced into structures. I thought the yellow card for Billy Meakes was particularly harsh because once he tackled the player was on or over the try line. And if he released the player, then basically he was just going to put the ball down. So to me, that was a harsh yellow card for Billy Meakes. I thought he was entirely in his rights to try and keep the player from scoring the try. It's what we see all the time when players go over the line. Obviously, the refs thought he was short of the line and therefore he should have released. But to me, I thought that was a harsh yellow card and penalty for Billy Meakes. The Rebels, to be fair to them, survived that yellow card very well, only giving up one try during that time, where Lamb got his hat trick. There was a tap and go when Debrasini got himself on the wrong side of a penalty. Pardon me. And then finally, obviously, at the very end, the Rebels tried to chip out their own 22 to get a consolation try and try and get something for the fans, because this was a big audience, a big crowd for the Rebels, which was fantastic. And unfortunately, West tapped it down. Geordie Barrett got hold of the ball. Okay, he flicked it out the back. It went to the grass, but the ball then quickly went out wide to Ben Lamb, and Ben Lamb slid in for his fourth try to bring up the half century. West missed his kick, and he missed he missed at least 2 kicks from memory. So he needs to improve on that side of things. And we saw that when he used to play for the Blues. So not really that surprised by that. And he's not a player that I'll be honest, I'm that impressed by. We talked. There was a comment in the chat where about Julian Sevilla earlier on, and having a quick look at that, he made 152 meters running, 17 runs. He had a solid game, but I think what we saw here was that the mind was willing and the body just isn't anymore. There were a couple of opportunities one of those on about 70-odd minutes where he got the ball out on the wing. It was him and one player, and in the good old days, he would have just bashed over that one player and gone and scored. This time, runs into the same run, hits the player, doesn't quite have the same power as he used to, and gets tackled when he throws the ball inside. Unfortunately, it went forward that time. And there were a couple of instances like that we saw during this game where you think Julian Sevilla 3 years ago or 4 years ago would have been putting them away and scoring tries or making an awful lot more yardage than he did. So I can see he's really trying. He really wants that All Black jersey back, but unfortunately, for my mind, I think he's lost a bit of that pace. He's lost a bit of that power, and whilst the mind is willing, the body isn't quite anymore. Looking down some of the other stats around the players, Julian Sevilla topped the meters run with 152, which I was a bit surprised by. Ben Lamb comes in second with 104 meters, which shows that the Hurricanes used their wings and used their width a lot more than the Rebels, where I say they hardly their wings hardly saw the ball. Geordie Barrett had a decent game. Lamapi did as well. Arso was a bit quiet this game for me, but hey, you can't all be superstars in a performance, can you? Evans, as I say, got the try, 8 runs, 29 metres. He put himself about a bit, and I thought Henwood also had a good game as well, perhaps probably more on the defending side than attacking. Someone obviously who doesn't get that much opportunity with Arlie Surveyor obviously owning that jersey, but he Henwood topped the tackle count with 9 tackles, none missed, so that was all very good. Eves missed 5 tackles in this game, which amazed me. So I think he's clearly there for mainly for his scrummaging, but I think he probably needs to work a bit more on that side of things. Made 6 tackles and missed 5, which is not great, and that made he was the highest missed tackles in the game. Coleman got through the most tackles with 11, none missed as well, so he did well on the Rebels side of things. And and Hodge also got through some tackles. Amazingly enough, I say on attack, we were talking about the fact that Corabetti only did no runs. Hodge, again, wasn't until the second half that he actually got his hands on the ball and made any runs. He ended up making 4 runs in the end. But they were definitely the Rebels just did not use their backs as much as they probably could have done. And as we said before, that might have been partly down to them not being able to get through the phases. On the discipline side of things, whilst the Hurricanes got a warning in that first half, they spread it all around. They all were only giving one penalty each. Tuanga Alam, when he came on, did give out 3 penalties. On the other side, Coleman did get through that work, all those tackles, but he also gave up 3 penalties as well during that piece. So a quick look on the live chat, and let's just see what the comments in there. Is Ohio West settling in well to the Canes? That game was solid from him, a good last 20. Yeah, it's not hard to do that when you're coming on and you're so many points up against a struggling side. Personally, I'm still not that sold that West is really a Super Rugby quality fly half. Yeah, that's all the other stuff in there I think we've covered off on during our chat. Thank you very much for joining me. Real shame that we lost Josh during this. It's had some sound qualities there, but do check out his Twitter account at NZ Rugby Quizzes. He has a lot of great rugby quizzes in there, and he does keep them all up to date and fresh. So yes, if you want to know all the players with 100 caps in Super Rugby, then do that quiz. I'm sure that Sam Kane will be added to that one very shortly. Thank you all for joining me. I've been Paul, the guy behind DrivingMaul. I'll be back tomorrow night for the Blues versus the Sharks and the Brumbies versus the Waratahs, giving you post-match live reaction to those games as well. So check out that. So don't forget, click the subscribe button down below, and if you click the bell next to it, then you'll get updates about every single video, and you won't miss any of those. If you're watching the recording, you can also click the face there, and there's a box up there with my latest video. So thank you everybody for watching. All the thumbs up and stuff is all much appreciated, and enjoy whatever rugby you're watching.